Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Aces High. Today we are mixing two things. So today is actually a history day. It's going to be Wednesday, um, and uh, and I figured we would look at a little bit of the history of the royal family. So that being said, the video is called "A Brief History of the Royal Family," and it's made by CGP Grey. Great channel. I know that several of you guys have recommended him to me, and yeah, it's an American that I guess lives in Great Britain now, lives in England specifically, uh, and has for quite a while. Several of you are huge fans of the channel, so go check him out if you haven't already. That being said, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that sub button, help me out. Um, I'm growing every day, and I'm excited for it. All right, well, I'm gonna sit back, I'm gonna shut up, go grab yourself a drink, and let's get going.
1066, the start of the royal family on these fair isles. Well, there
Really?
were kings and many countries before that, and druids before that, and Pangaea before that, but we have to start somewhere, and
1066, was that like really? I mean, yeah, you said we have to start somewhere, but what about like oh, what Ethelfled or that's a freaking tongue twister. Anyway, what Edward the Elder way back in like Wessex days and everything. So he's probably not talking about that, but I would assume that he would start with like what Edward the Elder, right? Uh, isn't he the one that united England?
a millennia ago is plenty far. If that leaves out Ethelred the Unready, so it goes. William the
Okay.
Conqueror conquered in the Norman Conquest, Norman here being code for French. Because it's the olden days, people had lots of kids, but to keep things simple, this family tree is going to leave out many of them on each branch because not every child matters. So William had 3 kids we care about, William II, Henry I, and Adela. If you've seen the video about royal succession, click here if you haven't, you'll know that formal rules for passing on the crown will get established, but for now
Huh.
it's a free-for-all home team advantage to the eldest son, but never forget bigger army diplomacy. Upon William the Conqueror's death, William II became king. William II didn't marry, and on a bro's day out with Henry, died in a hunting accident that gave Henry I the crown. Henry I had at least 26 children, of which
Interesting.
only 2
Suspicious.
were 100% legit. He declared his daughter would rule next
Whoa,
after
whoa,
at
whoa.
least 26 children, of which
26 children? Jesus Christ.
only 2 were 100% legit. He declared his daughter would rule next after his son died in a shipwreck, and swore his knights to honor Empress Matilda by crossing their hearts, hoping to die, sticking a needle in their eye. But when Henry I died while Matilda was in France, many ignored this while her cousin Stephen raced to Westminster using faster army diplomacy to get coronated first. Empress Matilda did eventually return and start a decades-long civil war that was pretty much a stalemate because turtling in the 1100s was an effective RTS tactic. While she did rule part of the island, as Matilda never had an official coronation, her monarchical status is disputed. Now, as Stephen's children were either dead, disinterested, or a nun, his crown went to his nephew, Henry II, who had 4 sons, Henry the Young, Richard the Lionheart, King John, and Jeff. Guess who died before his turn? Henry II saw the history thus far of conquering, assassination, maybe usurpation, attritional war, and decided waiting until
Okay, so yeah, obviously we know Richard Lionheart. We know his brother King John. And then I guess Henry the Young. I'm assuming he died a little younger. I mean, not because of his name, but I guess that does make sense.
after the death of the current king before sorting out the next king didn't work. So Henry II changed the system and crowned Henry the Young co-king with him, invoking the rule of 2. 1 is none. 2 is 1. If it's important, you need a backup. It was a good plan for stability, helped by the young king's popularity, but unfortunately the apprentice rebelled against the master, rallying his brothers, which resulted in another civil war of disputed monarchs, during which Henry the Young died
Come
of dysentery,
on.
Henry the Elder died of fever, and Richard I took the crown. After Richard came John and 4 eldest son successions in a row. John to Henry III, insert Magna Carta here, to Edward I, Longshanks to Edward II to Edward III. Actually, Ed II was overthrown by Isabel of France, aka the She-Wolf of France, aka his wife. After deposing her husband, she acted as regent for their son. Every one of these arrows glosses over a bit of complexity. Edward III had 5 sons, Edward the Black Prince, Lionel, John, Edmund, and Thomas, none of which would wear the crown. When Edward III died, his throne would have gone to the Black Prince, but he was dead at the time, so the crown went to his boringly named son Richard, now the second. There's a bunch of drama llama stuff around Richard II, which your English teacher might force you to read about, but spoiler alert, his
I wonder how that happened. Like it skipped all those the next in line, went straight to the grandchild.
History's ending is always the same: bigger army diplomacy. This
Okay,
time
that's how
from
it happened.
Henry IV, who gets the crown, and Richard II gets starvation and captivity. Another Henry before we get to the War of the Roses, a war that strikes terror and boredom in the minds of students of history the nation over, who have to deal with this family tree simplified to explain why everyone was angry. But the shortest version ever is Edward III's great-great-grandsons duked it out, even though one of them was dead for part of the fight, but we can't get into that now, so Henry VI to Edward IV to Henry VI to Edward IV, the end. Edward IV on his deathbed left his crown to his son, but being 12 he needed protection, so Richard, his bestest uncle in the world, promised to take super good care of him. Edward V then promptly disappeared under suspicious circumstances that left Richard to become Richard III. But he didn't stay king for long, because Edward III's great-great-great-great-grandson Henry VII took the crown, put a ring on Elizabeth of York to lock down that royal legitimacy, and then sired Henry VIII, splitter of churches and ladies. Henry VIII thought it was high time to formalize the rules of inheritance, so he wrote them out in his
Frickin' Henry VIII, we know that story.
will, basically saying oldest boys first, girls only if there aren't any boys, and Parliament approved the rules, which should have made everything neat and tidy, but we're about to enter the really messy time. Because Henry's son lived just long enough to screw it up, inheriting the throne at 9. There was, of course, a scheming protectorate running things, yet he still declared at 15 that his father's rules were dumb, and his sisters were dumb, and that his first cousin once removed, Lady Jane Grey, should be the next monarch instead. Then he died, and Lady Jane Grey became queen at
Not for
16.
long.
Sort of, in a disputed status way, for 9 days, until beheaded
Yeah.
by Mary, the first really, truly, officially nobody down.
Mary is kind of terrifying, though. Seriously, Mary the First. Oh my God. Like, I'm not just saying the picture. Like, if you have done the history on Mary, I wouldn't want to screw with her.
At queen. Mary didn't have any kids and passed the crown to Elizabeth I, who became the second queen in a row to also not have children. But no problem, because Lady Jane Grey was next in right. Now this is the point at which we acknowledge Scotland exists. They'd been doing their own royal thing, which for our purposes joins the English branch, where Edward III's great-granddaughter married into it in the 1400s, and then goes James, Mary Queen of Scots, James, bringing us back to the 1600s. Henry VIII's sister importantly also married into this line of the family, giving it English legitimacy points in the eyes of the English Parliament, which asked to borrow Scotland's James, making him king of 2 countries, with 2 numbers in his name depending on where you're counting from. James had a son, Charles I, and you might think this unification of the monarchs means the very messy time is over. But no, because Cromwell. Cromwell didn't like kings and beheaded.
Oh yeah, we just watched a video about that. If you guys haven't checked it out, go watch it. Cromwell was not a big fan of Charles I, that's for sure. And then that whole mess with can monarchs, be tried? Can they commit crimes? All that crap.
Charles I declaring no royals no longer, making himself the Lord Protector, which was in no way like a king, even though he was in charge and it was a hereditary office passed to his son. But the Cromwells didn't last, mainly because his son was a fancy country squire who didn't follow Rule 0, keep the army happy, giving Charles's son, Charles II, the ability to re-establish the monarchy. Charles II had lots of children, all of which were illegitimate, leaving his brother, James II, next in line. But James II was Catholic, and ever since Henry split the church, Catholics had
Yeah, they don't want Catholics, that's for sure.
Terrible approval ratings. But conveniently, he had nice Protestant daughters, one married to a Dutch prince, who by the nature of these things was the grandson of Charles I. Bonus English legitimacy points, plus who doesn't like the Dutch? With James so unpopular and William and Mary so popular, the army and nobles pretty much invited the royal couple to invade, and James too fled. William and Mary ruled as co-monarchs, but without children, the crown went to Queen Anne, who also didn't produce any heirs, though not from lack of effort. She was pregnant 17 times. Again, finding themselves with a no royals no longer situation, Parliament decided it was really truly seriously the time to sort out the rules of inheritance, to avoid pretenders from every branch of this messy tree fighting over the crown. Parliament did a royal reboot to clear the cruft, defining Sophia of Hanover, the granddaughter of James dual numbers, to be the new starting point for all claims to the crown. These rules finally stuck.
Why was he James the Sixth and the First? Like, why is that? Does somebody know?
thus ending the very messy time. George I, son of Sophia, was the first king under the new rules, then his son George II to George III, and even though he lost America and his mind, never fear, the rules are here, so the crown continued to calmly descend the family tree, going to George IV, who didn't have any surviving children, to William IV, who had 10 children, all illegitimate. Then passing through his dead younger brother to Queen Victoria, who started her reign in 1837 and made it to just over the finishing line of the 20th century, which is a doubly impressively long time given the state of medical technology then. After the end of her age, the crown went to her son Edward VII, to George V, to Edward VIII, who finally breaks up this neat and tidy and somewhat boring line of succession by
Yeah, okay, we know it from here for sure.
committing a scandal, marrying a commoner, an
Right.
American commoner divorcee twice over.
Yeah, there was a lot of hate specifically. I mean, a commoner's one thing, and American's one thing, but the fact that she was divorced and twice over, that was huge. Yeah,
Actually,
see?
the divorces were a real problem and weren't compatible with the monarch's role as head of state and also the Church of England in the 1930s. Edward abdicated to his brother George VI, who was reluctant to take the crown and then had to oversee World War II and the subsequent breakup of the British Empire, which drained the reluctant king's health, who died at 56, leaving the crown to Elizabeth II in 1952 at the age of 25.
There she is.
7 years older than Victoria, her great-great-grandmother was on her coronation day, but in early September 2015, Elizabeth became the longest reigning queen in not just British history, but world history. From Elizabeth II, the crown continues on to Charles, the longest heir apparent in British history, to his son William, to his son George.
So I've got a question. So people like Prince William, right? And I mean, they love Kate, all that. Some people like Harry, from what I've heard. Some don't. But Charles, I know some of you in the past have told me that you like him, but I have heard from so many British people that you just don't like Charles. And I've heard that it's with a lot of it's what went on with Princess Diana and everything back in the day, and just I'm not really sure. Like, can somebody explain this to me? Somebody that doesn't like Prince Charles, let me know. Like, what is it?
And that is a brief history of the royal family.
Okay. Well, shoot, there it is. That was actually really interesting. It was kind of cool to be see it spelled out. I knew bits and pieces of it back in the day, and I knew like the last, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations or so. I could trace it back about that far. Before that, I get a little lost. Um, but yeah, very very cool. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know what you guys want me to see. What you want me to watch. That being said, this is Aces High. Hope you dug it. Till next time, I love y'all, and I'm out.